What is going on, everyone? LeoBlade13 here, welcoming you back to one of our last Dragoborne Let's Talks for Oath of Blood. So, the pre-release was this past weekend, and the set officially launches this Friday, and we still have a ton of cards left to talk about, so I figure we're just gonna go through and talk about all of them by color. So, this video we'll be discussing all the yellow ones, tomorrow's will be all the green, blue, red, black, so ending up on Friday. And then probably next week, after the set officially drops, maybe then we'll go through and talk about the best double rare, rare, common, and uncommon. But anyways, let's jump right into this, because we have like 16 or 17 cards to talk about, so this is going to be a lengthy one. But first up, we have a 4-drop Highborn Sage, 3 attack, 5 endurance, with the ability, when this creature is summoned, you may choose an opposing ambush and look at it. So I really like that. It allows you to play around your opponent pretty much. You can, if they're playing red, you can look and see if there's a pyroblast, then wait until they roll a low red number. That was really difficult to say. And if you looked at an ambush, you can draw a card. So it does replace itself. I mean, it's a decent card. I'd rather just play Eleanor and say no to ambushes altogether. But I mean, if you're playing mono yellow or don't have room for green, this is a good option. Next up, we have Supreme Judgment, which is, in my opinion, one of the best spells in this set. It is a 2-drop yellow spell, and it lets you destroy all black and blue Drago shields. So, black and blue decks are probably not going to be as relevant, and probably won't be for a while, just because, like, the super controlliness that they have is kind of lost when they lose their biggest defenders in a 0-6, so being able to just eliminate that is kind of huge, and most of the time, I know when I play, I kind of rely on that dice as an extra blocker, so when Fafnir comes down on me, it hurts, so I can only imagine what this spell is going to do. So I don't think it's going to cause too much of an issue if you're just running 1 black or 1 blue, but in a deck that runs like 1 black and 1 blue, or 2 blacks, or 2 blues, or monocolor, I think that's when it starts to hurt. But then also, if you have a yellow 1-2, you can draw a card. So overall, this is a really amazing card, and definitely one of the best side deck cards, which, of course, there will be a video talking about that later as well. But next up, we have Wings of the Sunscale, which is a 4-drop creature with 4 attack, 4 endurance. It has the ability, when this creature attacks, you may discard a card from your hand and draw a card. Then, if you have 4 or less cards in your hand, draw 2 cards. So, it does allow some extra draw, which is going to be really nice going up against a black discard deck, which I do feel is going to be really outstanding this next format up until the 3rd set, which is set to release on February. If you were not aware, at least the next trial deck is, so I'm assuming that's when the next set releases as well. But then it's also got the yellow Drago Cross ability, which is this creature gets +1/+0, so just kind of meh, but overall, it's a decent card. If you're worried about the black matchup, maybe add this in, but if you're playing yellow, drawing shouldn't be a problem. Next up, we have Shining Decree. This is a 3-drop spell with the ability, choose 3 of your creatures and destroy them. If you do, choose 1 of your destroyed forts and put the top card of your deck on that fort as a barrier. And then if you have a yellow 1-2, you only have to choose 2 of your creatures instead, and if it has a fort burst, you can play it for free. So you do get to restock one of your barriers, but you do get to restock one of your forts, but sacrificing 3 creatures seems like a really hefty price to pay. However, there is a card that we're going to be talking about towards the end of this video that is going to make it worthwhile if you happen to have both of them. So, we'll save a discussion for this until later, but by itself, it's just kind of meh, and if you're not even running the other card, I won't even think about using this. I think Remus is just much better. Next up, we have Ellis, Aegis of Light. So it's a 3-drop for 1 attack, 1 endurance, and its ability is when this creature is destroyed, choose an opposing fort, and all creatures at that fort cannot attack for this turn. So it's essentially a really weak Teriel and a not as good Sigrun, so I would just run both of those instead. I don't really care for this card too much, but then it also has the Fort Burst ability, which is summon this creature, choose up to one of your green creatures, and stand it. So I do really like that effect. I think that's a really unique effect. I know we're only 2 sets in, so we are going to see a lot of new quote-unquote effects, but I feel like that's a really interesting one to have. Maybe if you're playing yellow, yellow, green, maybe she'd be worth running more than 2 copies of, but overall it's not a horrible card, but it's definitely not the best card in the set. Moving on, we have High Elf Shield Mage, which is a 3-drop with 2 attack, 3 endurance, and her ability is when this creature is summoned, if you have a green creature, you may siphon 2. If you do, choose an opposing ambush and destroy it. So I really like this card. It's essentially a Mischievous Sprite, except you have to have a green creature on the field. And the reason I like this over Mischievous Sprite is that it has better stats. Mischievous Sprite was just a 1/1, so it easily died, couldn't really kill anything, but this will be able to take a hit and possibly kill something if it's Dragor crossed. The one thing that Mischievous Sprite did do, though, was boost all your other green creatures by +1/+1, so those Fleetwing sprites that stuck around from the early game had a little bit more to do. But I do really like this card. I don't know exactly if it's a good replacement for Mischievous Sprite if you're playing yellow-green. However, I do think it is a really decent card. I think it just depends on the ratio of your colors and at what point in the game you're going to need this. I do like Mischievous Sprite because it just has the condition that you have to summon it. While this, you have to have a green creature, you have to siphon 2, and it just seems to be asking a lot for destroying an ambush. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this card down below. Do you think this is going to replace Mischievous Sprite, or do you think Mischievous Sprite is going to outlast this card? But the next one we have is Battle-Worn Colossus. It's a vanilla 7-drop with 8 attack, 8 endurance, so pretty beefy creature, but let's face it, not going to see any play. And then we have a 5-drop with 4 attack, 4 endurance, Exalted Rune Mage, who has the ability Siphon 4, draw a card. I don't really see a use for this. Yellow has so many other good draw cards. I like Bountiful Angel more than this, because every turn you attack with 2 creatures, you get a draw, and her ability can start stacking. And with this being a 5-drop, I think I'd just rather play the Elder Dragon. So this creature is just kind of meh. Yellow really went lackluster in this set, aside from like Sigrun and the Elder Dragon. I think those are like the only 2 good yellow cards, or yellow creatures I should say. They did get some pretty powerful spells. Next up, we have a 3-drop with 2 attack, 1 endurance, with the ability you can siphon a yellow 2, and this creature cannot be blocked by creatures with 2 or less attack for this turn. So it's essentially Logra Swiftblade with a little bit higher of a threshold, because Logra Swiftblade couldn't be blocked by creatures with 1 or less. This one can't be blocked by creatures with 2 or less. So I do really like that. I like where they're going with that, and I hope we continue to see more of these cards because it is a really nice out to Teriel. I would say Darion, but Darion stops it. But overall, just a really decent card, and I do like the Siphoning 2 abilities. I think that's a really good way to manipulate your dice. If you're playing yellow, blue, green, you can lower your green dice to hit those rejuvenates. But I don't know if this would see much play. I think Logra Swiftblade just does Logra Swiftblade better. Next up, we have another vanilla, a 3-drop with 4 attack, 3 endurance, and it's just kind of there. You're gonna gloss over it when you open it up. Then we got another 2-drop, which is a machine. So, blue, green, yellow machines possibly. and he has 2 attack, 1 endurance, with the ability of siphoning 3. All of your machines get +1/+1 for this turn. So he is able to boost himself, which is nice, and he does boost all your other machines. So I believe Vessel of the End was just a 1/1. I may be wrong about that, but does let him stick around after he summons the End of Tides. And, just not always nice to have more creatures on board. But then when he's yellow Drago crossed, he gets the ability when this creature attacks or blocks, draw a card and discard a card from your hand. So just some more cycling through your deck, able to hit those End of Tides and Vessel of the End, whichever one you're looking for. And overall, I think this is going to be a really nice addition to a machine deck. And with it only being a 2 cost, it's going to be some good early game for it. Next up, we have Dignified Brawler, who is another 2-drop with 1 attack, 2 endurance. But he has the ability Siphon 2, and this creature does not take damage for this turn. So I really like this card. It just kind of forces your opponent to block or take a hit on their fort, and if they do block, he doesn't die. So I really like this card, and it is important to note that the ability can only be activated on your turn, so you aren't able to block with him and Siphon 2. I think that would make this card really amazing, but unfortunately that's not the case. But I do really like this card, and it is only a common, and it'll probably be really good in the the sneak preview this weekend. I just blanked on everything, but this video is coming out after that. But if yours happen to be delayed for some reason, maybe look at putting him in your deck. And even after maybe that first tournament when Oath of Blood is legal, he might still be pretty good until the new meta is kind of defined. But anyways, next up we have Sunscale Warden, who is only a 2-drop with 1 attack, 3 endurance, and when this creature is summoned, rest all creatures with 2 or less endurance. So I do really like this card. It's just kind of a good pairing to Sunscale Aesthetic, who rested a 5-drop or higher creature, and she's just able to rest the whole field. I think this is one of those times where comboing with Water's Edge Shuriken would be a really good choice, even though I'm still not a fan of that card. But early game, if you would be able to rest all of your opponent's creatures and then wipe them all out, it will be just as detrimental as a Death and Decay, which is pretty amazing. So I think this is definitely going to be a decent card, but it'll be interesting to see if she actually gets any play. Next up, we have a 1-drop, Angelica's Guard. So it does have 1 attack, 1 endurance, and an ability for siphoning 3. This creature gets +1/+0. If you siphon a green die, she gets +1/+1 instead. So, just a 1/1 or a 1-drop, can't really ask for much for them, but I think it's a decent one. I think Elven Bladesmith is a little bit better, but I guess variety is always good in a deck, but I just think Elven Bladesmith is a better option. So moving on, we're in the spells now. First up, we have United in Purpose, which is a 4-drop, and the ability is if an opposing effect would cause you to discard this card from your hand, if you have a yellow banner, you may play this card without paying its cost instead. Draw 3 cards and discard a card from your hand. Then put a card from your hand face down in your ambush zone. So that's if you have a blue 1/3. So I don't really like this card. I think it's cool that they have this effect where you can play it for free if you would be forced to discard it. However, it doesn't stop the discarding. So you're going to draw 3 cards, discard a card, and you'll have those 2 extra cards which you have to discard. So I don't understand why it doesn't negate the discarding effect. I think it'd be really cool if it was just a counter to the black discarding, but I think it is nice that they added that blue 1/3 effect, being able to put a card in your ambush zone, then you can just add it back with Play-Doh. So that's pretty cool, but I think they had a big opportunity with this card and they missed it. Unless I'm missing out on something, let me know down below if you see some reason that this card should be played and I'm just overlooking it. But moving on, we've got Righteous End. So this is an ambush with the ability when a creature at this fort is destroyed during your opponent's turn, and this card is an ambush. If you have less creatures than your opponent, choose X opposing creatures and destroy them, where X is the difference between the number of creatures you and your opponent have. So this is the card that I was talking about that comboed really well with that other spell where you have to destroy 3 of your creatures. If, say you happen to hit it as a fort burst, and you only have 3 creatures, you can destroy all 3 of your creatures, add a barrier to one of your forts, and then trigger the ambush because one of your creatures was destroyed on your opponent's turn. And then if you have no creatures left, your opponent has to destroy all of their creatures. Or, well, you get to choose what creatures are destroyed. So it's essentially a board wipe in the form of an ambush, which I really like. I think this card is going to be a huge change for the game and is definitely one of the best reasons to play yellow. I think this mixed with Sigrun, mixed with Teriel, is gonna be huge. So I'm definitely looking forward to trying out some yellow builds after Oath of Blood comes out. And this card is just fantastic, and it's gonna scare your opponent into destroying anything. I think this will be the reason we see a decrease in Zarko. I think this is gonna cause Zarko to be used more cautiously, especially if they see that yellow banner and they know that they have an ambush face down. I mean, Zarko could easily play around that by not targeting any cards at this card's fort, but I mean, they're going to have to attack that fort at some point, right? So I do really like this card, and this was the last card we had to talk about today. So if you made it the whole way through the video, congrats. Be sure to check out Dragoracle, where they have all the other cards, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's green video. But yeah, be sure to follow the link to my Twitter down below, and as always, thanks for watching.